Hey everybody, it's Monster back in with Oppas Gaming, and I'm here back again, joined by Eric and Tusa. But today we have a couple guests from the team. I'll have you guys introduce your guys yourself one by one, and then let's talk about what card games that you guys play right now.
Oh, hello everyone. My name is Muachee. I've been here for a while. You should know me for all those deck profiles.
Absolutely, and all the playtesting that we've done. What card games are you playing right now, Muchi? Just all together.
Also, I've been playing Digimon a lot lately, and as a side, I also been playing One Piece.
Yep, a lot of us have been playing a lot of Digimon. So, how about for you? You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my
It's
name is
okay.
Newt. Hey guys. Yeah, I right now I play mostly Digimon. Although I will say that I did dabble a little in One Piece. I am currently taking a break from One Piece for now. I might jump back in when I feel like the game's a little bit more interesting for me. But right now I've been really enjoying Digimon.
Yeah, something we've been covering on the channel quite a bit is how much we've been enjoying Digimon, talking about Digimon. So this is the perfect time to let everybody know that today's episode is going to be exclusively Digimon. We're going to do a lot of chit chatting about the game, since that's the thing that our whole team has just been. All of us have been just having so much fun. So there's a lot to talk about. But speaking on the whole team thing, there's like 30, 40 something people in our group chat. So as we go through and introduce all these different teammates that we're going to be introducing week by week, I actually think it's going to be really interesting if you guys remember, it's been a while. We've been playing card games together for a long time. But do you guys remember how you guys kind of got into Opa's gaming kind of officially? Because I know it's never official, right? There's never a day that anybody says anything to you, but it's like the vibe. Just one day you're a part of the family, and that's just how it goes.
Okay, so for me, it started last year. So I got into it last year with a group. I think it took a while for everyone to get to know me, for logos. And I think after 1 year when the Digimon card game first came out, that's when everyone recognized who I was, got used to me, and that's when I officially joined.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. No, I remember I was seeing you all the time at locals. You always played blue, and you were always so aggressive, so good at like your plays and knowing what you're gonna play, right? So it's just like you had your own signature, and yeah, I remember meeting you for sure. But how about for you, Newt? You're a little bit newer of a member. I would say honestly, maybe one of the newest, not the newest, but how about
Yeah.
you? What was it like joining up for you?
So I joined like basically I started playing Digimon at the start of in the middle of BT9 format, which was an interesting format to get started
Hmm.
in. But I don't know, like you mentioned, it was just kind of like a vibe thing. Like it wasn't like there wasn't a clear cut like, hey, now you're like part of the group. It's just like, hey, you're pretty chill, and then we just started playing and hanging and play testing. So that was just basically it. So I can't really give you a clear date, but it's been a fun time.
No, for sure, for sure. Yeah, just having you guys around. For anybody that kind of pops in and out of the Discord, they see our Discord names all the time. We're all just playing together. So I think that's one of the best things. But for this past week, so since we've all been together, we've said that we all play Digimon. It's been a really big week for all card games on the Bandai side, especially with Gen Con and everything. But what have you guys been up to for the past week? What games has everybody been playing?
Also, for me, I guess I have been focusing on Digimon. I've been doing those Gen Con tournaments, for this past weekend. I did, in my opinion, I guess I did pretty good. Top 32 from decks I literally tried playing testing like a few days ago.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I know for
Yeah.
me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Newt.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I also did Gen Con, and I didn't do super hot, but it was a really fun time. Yeah, go ahead, Jimmy. You were gonna say.
No, no, no. For me, so for over the entire week, it's I've been kind of splitting it. So I always do like One Piece and Digimon for the most part right now. I need to get back on some Battle Spirits, but I haven't finished my BSSO2 deck as of yet. So I've been chilling on Battle Spirits, focusing on Digimon because we have had this 4 day run of events. At least for me, it was 4 days, and also Muchi, it was 4 days for you too because you were right there with me the whole time.
Oh
So
yeah,
it
I
was
was.
Digimon One Piece, Digimon One Piece. So that was the big thing. But I actually also made it out to a locals a little bit earlier in the week too, just to jam some games with friends, get those deck lists finalized and stuff like that. So for me, it's been just kind of locals with just the regular stuff. Digimon One Piece. I picked up a new deck in One Piece, so that's something that's been really interesting for me. Luffy made another big appearance. Shout out to Russell LePere. I think this is my like fourth time talking about this deck on camera. So that the Luffy deck has been huge. I have a friend who actually piloted it the whole like 10 rounds, I believe, on Sunday, and he just has amazing things to say about it. So for me, it's just been enjoying the developing meta, and I know that we've been in a meta for a little bit for all these card games, but it doesn't feel like any of them have gotten mastered yet. So it's been really fun for me, enjoying playing in all these events at least for the past week.
Yeah, for me, I did the same thing as you guys. Also playing Gen Con, but I did base for the minimum pricing. So it's just for fun. I didn't want to stay there for all 10 rounds for One Piece and all 7, 8 rounds for Digimon.
Mm-hmm. No, it's totally
Yeah,
fair.
your resident doesn't like playing webcamer. I didn't play a single Gen Con tournament this weekend. Surprise, surprise for any of you. I did go to a couple locals. We had a pretty good turnout Friday night still, even with Gen Con going on. I think it was something like a 23-man tournament, and I ended up going. Did I go undefeated that tournament? I can't remember.
You did.
I
I
think you
did, yeah.
Yeah, from what I saw.
Yeah, so yeah, I went undefeated. I'm pretty sure I did good. Yeah, so went undefeated that, and then had a fun 4-person Swiss round robin tournament on Saturday. Newt was actually there for that one. We ended up tied 2-1 for the victory because Newt took me in the head to head, but then I had the better overall win bracket. So Bandai gave me the ranking even though he beat me in the head to head.
Oh, that's funny. Nice.
Yeah, so.
That sounds like an exciting tournament, and honestly, we'll be circling back to that 4-man tournament in a later topic on the subject. But I think it's actually really great to have 4 people who did compete in Gen Con on varying levels. Because I was tryharding the whole way through every tournament I was playing. I was definitely going to be putting my best foot forward. But then we have Tusa, who was just chilling, right? And then Newt, who came in and played a little bit. And Muachee, you were kind of chilling towards the end too. You were like, "Dang, I'm doing good, but I don't want to be doing good." So we'll talk about what we experienced playing the events a little bit later. But let's just dive straight into Digimon. Today's all about Digimon. So we have talked a lot about the meta. We've had a couple tournament results, but I really want to keep that conversation ongoing and looking at the decks that did top Gen Con. All right, so actually, some of the deck lists aren't completely out, so we'll just talk about the winners that we do know for the different events. So we do know that for the Thursday online regional, that one was taken by Shinegreymon, which I just have to eat my words right away on that one. We'll circle back and talk about it, but I said Shine was going to win anything. Circle back, and it definitely had the representation that I thought it was going to have, but I was just thinking that people were going to try to wall it out. Going into the next event that was going to be held on, I believe it was Saturday, the Saturday regionals, that one was won by Blue Flare. And that is kind of crazy. That's definitely something to talk about. Just kind of with where we put everything. We did have Blue Flare pretty high, especially with how it counters other decks in the meta. But that's crazy. And then looking at the final event for Gen Con for Digimon, it was that Ultimate Cup that we had Yejay participate in, and he said that the winner was a Mirage Galgamon player. So it looks like Mirage Galgamon took that event as well. What do you guys think about those tournaments results just for the online events, for all the ones that we participated in, with where we thought for the meta to go?
Both decks, I would say, in my opinion, they high root, right? If you see everything, you're going to do so well. Shining Greymon, your stack deck, you need to see the Tamers. Blue Flare, you need to see all your pieces. If you miss, you just lose. If you see them all, you're going to win.
I'm right there with you. I think both of those decks have like super interesting matchups. I think the Blue Flare taking an entire online regionals was super, super unexpected. I thought that even just looking at the list, right, it's not a very run-of-the-mill list. So I can see where it got there over the event. But that one surprised me quite a bit. I thought we were going to see a little bit more of just some of the other rogue decks come up and like take one event, but we didn't see that nearly as much.
Yeah, I feel like Shine just, it's not unbeatable, but it doesn't really get beat by any deck besides Royal Knight. And man, Royal Knight has some really bad matchups this format because the decks that beat it, they beat it really hard. Belphemon beats it really hard with they're playing the right Cyclone package. I mean, it's all around having the deck built around it, but pretty consistently, most of the decks that can afford to build around it are building around it. And when they get that matchup, they seem to be feeding. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard for people to be sitting there and teching out Shine because you're going to have to play Royal Knight if you really want to beat it consistently. And then you're just going to lose to some decks in this format, or you're going to be really bricky because the deck is still, Mega Zoo to a degree. It's not necessarily the cleanest deck to get your consistent draws on. It has some tough matchups to play through and tough draws.
No, it's totally fair. So Muachee, you piloted Shine one of the days, right? Fair. So we've talked a little bit about this, especially in your deck profile. Do you agree that like Shine doesn't have any like really bad matchups?
Yes, I agree. I think it doesn't have any bad matchups, but in my opinion, the deck also don't have any good matchups.
Oh, okay. I feel like the one thing I've noticed with Shine too is that it needs so many pieces, and that's kind of where it comes in. And if you can get all your pieces for 8 rounds in a tournament, you can totally get there. Just kind of like what Tusa was saying, where it's like both decks or all the decks that kind of topped are a little bit more, as long as they get their pieces, they're a little bit more high rolly, right? They just have this crazy, crazy power level that they can get up to. But none of the decks surprised me. I would definitely say that, but I definitely have to eat my words on Shinegreymon not taking an event. I just felt like 8 rounds is crazy to see like the correct setup, and it does have a couple of rough matchups, but nothing too crazy. I guess it's really just the Royal Knights, but we didn't see Royal Knights all too crazy. I did see, this is a pretty funny story, but on the first day, maybe it wasn't the first day, maybe it was the Saturday event, but I played up against a Royal Knights player who was playing 4 of the Anki Loki, the card that once you're at 3 life, it minuses 12 and bounces something. He was playing 4 of that. And I was swinging for game. I'll just explain the situation for you guys. I had a Bloom Lord on board. Bloom Lord was 16k swinging for the last 3 checks in a security. And I had like a Chimeramon in hand and like 4 other Digimon unsuspended. It was just a very clean go for game turn. Swing 16k. Thinking there's no bombs. The biggest Digimon's 14k, right? I'm ready to scoop it up, go to game 2. My man hits no. I have him locked out. So it's going into his turn and he has to clear like my entire board essentially, but he's locked at 1 memory. I'm thinking, it's all good. There's only so much he can do. And I have a Pomomon to stop the purge effects, right? So he's very few effects that he can do. My man plays X program, wipes my entire board and sets me to 7. Hits 2 Bloom Lords, hits the Pomomon I was telling you guys about, hits all the level 4s that were going to jog us into Chimeramon, and it was just devastating. I could just never really come back after that, actually, and he was just able to wall me out. And Royal Knights just being such an interesting deck, and a deck that can do that is crazy, but I thought that people were going to be playing it in just like more droves. It just goes to show that there's more than one shell, I think, that you can play Royal Knights in, and having him play like it was basically security control Royal Knights. Like in the game, I think it was game 3, my first 3 Bloom Lords died on the first check to a security bomb. His security bombs were Lonky X program. Not too much that you can do there, especially when the Lonky is the bottom 3. I think Lonky might have been the 4th check. So one of the Bloom Lords died on the first check. But yeah, it was a little bit rough. It was a little bit rough fighting into that. But how about you, Noot? Do you have any feelings about hearing what decks won compared to what you piloted?
So I do agree with you guys that it is a little bit like considering that the deck itself requires so many pieces to function properly, it can be a little bit weird to think about how it did so well. But it was popular. Like I feel like coming up to this format, that was the deck everyone was talking about. So I feel like with enough representation, it was inevitable that it was going to top somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not all too surprised. I do still think that it might be a little bit overhyped. Especially since we don't have like the trading cards in like what Japan had with this format yet.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a super good point. That's very true. Yeah, no, it's pretty easy to say, right? A strong deck that is a very high tier deck in the meta won, and it's there's a lot of reasons for it, right? It has really good matchups. I know that. I'm not sure. We'll circle back to what won Gen Con on a later podcast once we have all the official decks. But I'm pretty sure Hunters took first or second in an event as well that I saw over the weekend. But we can circle back to this. But the one thing that I do know that we all talked about was how Belphemon was going to do in Gen Con. And so far from the current events that we have for winners, we don't see a Belphemon list there. So is that surprising to any of you guys? Or do you guys kind of feel like Belphemon kind of just got its win in the beginning of the meta because it was the beginning of the meta and people didn't really understand how to play against it?
I think the deck is really strong, but it requires a really strong pilot. I think that's why we need to see a top. It requires a strong pilot for the deck.
No, I totally agree. I will just make my comments right here too. I completely agree with Muachee that it's a super good pilot, and I think that where you find the kind of like the skill ceiling is that you definitely do need to find your pieces, and it is a find your piece kind of deck, but there's lots of micro decisions that you have to make honestly almost every single turn. So when you're discarding that many cards, it's not always as easy as like dumping the Gizmons to fill the trash or dumping the rookies because you don't really play the rookies or whatever. There's so much that you have to consider with each discard compared to like what cards you play in your deck. You have to know your deck list like the back of your hand, you have to know your ratios, and then also just know what you need in each situation. So I played against a Belphemon a couple times over the weekend. I did lose one of the matchups, but I did see kind of some players fumble through where you're playing through the game, right? And then you get to a pivotal part, and then they're like, oh no, I discarded an Ostamon on my first discard, and I shouldn't have done that, or little things like that. So I think that one of the things with Belphemon is that I mentioned it, I think the first time that we brought up Belphemon, is that you do have to play objectively perfect game or an objectively correct game going through, right? Because you have so many points of decision, and it's something that's similar to Hunters too, in my opinion, where with Hunters you do have to make a lot of micro decisions and make a lot of correct micro decisions, knowing your deck list and what the future of the board may consist of and things like that. But that's a conversation to circle back when we're talking a little bit more about Hunter's position in the meta. But as far as Belphemon right now, I think that it definitely was a sleeper pick. It definitely took an event because people, not just because people didn't know how to play against it, but one of the big reasons because Belphemon wasn't in people's test circles as much. But now that we're seeing more more people know how to counter it with things like Blue Flare and stuff like that, I think that it's harder, but I don't think that it loses its spot in like the 1.5 / maybe tier 2 kind of tier, in my opinion. And I don't think it was ever like a tier 1 deck, so I think it was always 1.5 / tier 2, so it just doesn't drop at all.
Yeah, I'll say that deck's probably the deck in this format that's easiest to throw against as playing against it. You know, like, which, especially early format, is going to make the deck perform a lot better earlier format because people are just going to misplay a lot more consistently. As our previous conversations, people even know what their own cards do, much less their opponents. And, you know, in Ultimate Cup, when you swing into a Belphemon and they delete it with their effect, you know, it's not like your first locals where you're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. My bad. Can I take it back? Mm-hmm. You don't take it back. It happens, you know. So, absolutely. Yeah, definitely, I'm sure he piloted fantastic, and it's a really high skill ceiling deck. But I definitely, you know, think it's going to give it some favors in the early. And because of its early success, a lot of people specifically prepped for it, whether it's small text or just making sure they understand the matchup, which is going to hamper it a lot because it's still early in the format.
Totally. I know talking to Yejay even, he was talking about playing Blue Flare, and I asked him what his easiest matchup was. And when we were talking about Blue Flare in the meta, even talking to Tusa, right, when we're talking about your good matchups, you never really brought up Belphemon because you were thinking about the Shinegreymons and the Royal Knights and the combos that you can do for that. But he was saying that he really wants to play Blue Flare versus Belphemon because so many people will be on a mono purple Belphemon build. And yeah, you're totally right. As long as you lock down that Belphemon, right, they can't stall you out for long enough because it costs them so many cards in hand, and they can never get that official that bounce back, right, where they accelerate the game, say by 17 for 4 checks, right? So no, it's actually something that's really, really interesting when you have these decks that pop up in the format. They're not expected, so it's always hard to gauge them properly, right, because they have that surprise factor, I think. Noot and Tusa, did you guys play against any Belphemons over the weekend at all?
I did a lot of playtesting with our own teammates, Belphemon, including you. It was actually. Can I just say that like the whole Gizmon package is like really good?
Absolutely.
Like, yeah, like it's like I feel like because of the entire package, like any like purple deck can try to play with it and like make it like a lot better than what a purple deck used to mean like last format.
Totally.
Like, yeah, I've had some friends who I've been practicing with, including James, like doing throwing the Gizmon package in like Beelstar, and like Preston threw the Gizmon package into like Anubismon, and I'm just like,
I'm picking that
what?
deck up. I'm picking that deck up from Preston. I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah,
that's a crazy
it's so
combo.
good.
Yeah,
it's
good.
I'm just it caught me way off guard. I'm just like, wow, like purple decks like have a new identity now because of this, and like I'm not even sure if it's like Belphemon that's strong or is it because of the Gizmon package. So I am surprised how strong it is. I didn't actually get to play against any in my during my tournament at Gen Con, online Gen Con, but I think I've had enough like play testing with it to understand what it does now.
Totally.
I actually just want to point out something there. I think Noot, you brought up a really cool point. It's something that the rest of us probably ignored because Noot, you picked up in BT9, you know, so you never actually played in the Eismon meta. Back when Eismon and Scatter Mode were at 4/4 each, and when Purple was in its most degen state, and it was playing 3 Eismons off of a Scatter Mode, 3 Scatter Modes off of a discard, and they're all like 12k each, you know, on your turn, and like your opponent just discarded 3 cards and they got 4 Digimon out of nowhere. You know, and I feel because of like we all see this Gizmons, and we're like, oh, that's all right, you know, but we're not thinking about, you know, all it's not looking at, we're thinking about how good it actually is a package for the diversity and just overall for the game, because I feel like I'm shell shocked by that, and I'm like, oh, well, it's not as bad as Purple's been before. Surely the package isn't that big of a deal, you know, but it's probably going to be a pretty big impact going forward, and it'll be a design factor, you know, for probably future sets people that they have to think about.
I totally agree. I think that was a really good point to bring up too, because I didn't think about it like that either. Gizmon is a pretty good set of cards.
Yeah, for me, I didn't face any Belphemons. I mean, luckily for me in testing, it was a hard matchup just because it's a Digimon you can't interact with, and swinging 17th with 2 checks unsuspend, like Royal Knight Security just can't do anything about that.
Definitely, definitely. No, I totally agree. I think that it's definitely one of those things. And kind of piggybacking off of what Newt brought up. Can you guys think of any like strategies for purple that could be kind of degen with the Gizmon package thrown in outside of just Beelstar? Because James cracked Beelstar. Beelstar looks really, really nice right now with the Gizmon package. We have Preston who cracked or maybe he didn't come up with it. He said that he saw it someplace online, but he's been playing that Gizmon with the Anubismon. I feel like Gizmon, Anubismon, if you couple in that Black War Growlmon, the level 5 that can aid Digiburst 2 and bring one out from the... You can send 2 Gizmons to your... Or no, you can't because you can't Digivolve them. But you can send 2 cards to your trash or whatever, bring out the Gizmon, right? And then Anubismons can give them Rush. And then also, if they don't die in life, you can swing and restand with your level 6. So I think there's lots of use for it. But I also feel like could Millith utilize the Gizmons super effectively, you think?
I feel like it's just a bit too not doing what you need it to do for such a big investment. Especially because I feel like Millith has the issue already where it's on the cusp of Millith itself out on its, even before its go out terms. Not always though, it usually doesn't mill itself out until it tries to go for the game, but
No, that's a good point. I said Millith,
Yeah.
but I meant Lilith Loop, like traditional Millith.
Oh yeah,
Lilith Loop,
traditional Lilith Loop. I think that's a great fit for actually, and I was gonna bring it up after where I was gonna say because I think it just fits well with the package. It lets you get the pieces you need, and with Lilith's recursion, it just helps you find your pieces and go into the combo more consistently. With also getting some chip in to help you win the game a bit easier when you get to the end game.
Yeah, it really makes me think about like getting up to 20 cards in the trash and then having those consistent jack raids when you do see them in the early and mid game. No, I think that could be super good too, for sure. But yeah, no, Gizmon's an interesting card. I think just kind of looking at it and looking at where it can go, you make a really good point where it does give a lot of purple decks probably, and there's probably just a ton of purple decks that they can just fit into, right? Because it's a consistency engine, and it's just not too intrusive. It's just some level 3s and level 4s for the most part as far as the draw 2s, discard 2s, but... Moving back into kind of what we saw with Gen Con and what we've seen online, post Gen Con, especially a little bit before Gen Con, but we've been seeing the post quite a bit lately. People are calling for Shinegreymon bans. What do you guys just feel about that concept or that topic in general? I know that it got to the point that in one of the Digimon Facebook groups, they said that they're going to be going through and deleting some of the posts because there's just so many. Do you guys think Shinegreymon needs to get banned?
Not really. I think maybe the Marcus, the forecast. I think everyone can argue the effect of it is pretty good. It becomes a Digimon by paying 1, free evolution, and I think the biggest issue isn't the free evolution. I think the issue is it's an attacker, a Digimon you can't interact with.
Yeah, no, for sure. Oh, so being more specific on the banning Shine thing, not just the Shinegreymon card, but banning just something in the package, basic to kneecap the package, is more so, I think, what people are calling for. Because I think a lot of people agree with you, where it's the Marcus is what needs to get hit. But is Shinegreymon truly that unbeatable that it deserves like a hit this early into the format like Crossheart got?
To be honest, probably not. I pilot the deck. I think the deck is good, but it's so fragile. You really need the Marcus. You really need the whole line. Without one or the other, you can't play the deck.
For sure.
And the deck isn't unbeatable.
One of my...
I guess...
Oh, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I guess I can give my thoughts on it too. Like, I mean, take this with a grain of salt because when I was testing with it, I wasn't testing like a traditional build. I do agree that like there's like a lot of it's fragile because it requires a lot of parts, but I feel like if it did get hit at some point later down the road, I don't know if it should be Marcus because I used to actually no, I was at one point I didn't think it would be Marcus, and then now I think it might actually be Marcus because in if you look at historically, like Bandai has hit cards that have like given the deck like the ability to OTK, like in like Melga, like the card that gave it the sec +1, the cards that just did too much, like Doru Grey that gives the sec +1, and then same with the Grand Quagamon. Yeah, it's like it's usually the cards that give it the sec +1. But if you pay attention, you also notice that like in other decks, like Blossom or the Greymon, it's like they hit the cards that give it the speed. And usually, I feel like the decks that where they hit the cards that give it the speed, it's usually because the deck needs the speed. And I think Shine kind of fits in that category where there's a lot of parts, a lot of pieces, and like it needs the speed to do what it wants to do. So in that case, that's part of the reason why I think that if they do hit it later down the road, it would be Marcus.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I mean, I've talked about this before, but like I don't think it's that strong yet because we don't have the training cards.
Very true. Yeah, I think the consistency is a big part of what hits it. For me right now, with hitting a deck like that, I'm just like, my philosophy in general is that no deck should be hit in the format that it comes out unless it's like a real issue, like a mechanical issue, or just like it's like truly unfair, like where it makes the game unplayable. That's more of an emergency ban kind of situation. But I'm like speaking about regular bans, where if we're looking at like the crossart ban, I don't consider that one an emergency ban. I think it was just a more regular type of ban. It was just part of the ban list, and hitting it in the format that it comes out, that's just not fair for anybody who built the deck that was excited, whether you just wanted to win all format. There's nothing wrong with just playing a strong deck and wanting to play and enjoy winning and stuff like that in different card games, because that's why we're all here. So I just feel like it's just not fair when you take away that just because the deck is super strong. And I understand that some people are not having fun against the deck and stuff like that. But I come from the War Greymon meta in 1.5 where that was just, you guys think your stuff is getting DP minus right now? That feels ridiculous. Imagine when the game was way less evolved and they could just hit your multiple level 6 decks, right? Or a level 5 and a level 6 back when building a level 5 and a level 6 was the most like technical thing in the game, right? So I just don't think that it has the unfairness, because like you guys are talking, you have things like Belphemon who just can't be DP reduced. You have cards like Breath of the Gods who give you DP reduction, prevention or protection or whatever. So you just have these decks that can exist still. And I think that even though you can't play necessarily your favorite deck, it's really hard for me to play Bloomlord right now into like a Shinegreymon matchup. And that's just something I have to accept. Like I have other decks that I can play, and if it comes down to the point where Shine is just the most played deck in the format, I'll just play something that's a little bit better into the matchup. But I feel like limiting anybody's like fun like that and just banning their deck is just will leave such a sour taste in so many players' mouths. I just don't like to see it, no matter how much I dislike the deck.
I think if they hit anything, they should beat the BT13 Greymon. That card's busted.
Oh, it's busted.
The card's too good. Too good. And honestly, you can hit it. The deck's still super functional. It loses a good chunk of consistency, but you can still play out, get your combo with full power. Mm-hmm. There's other Geo Greys you can play and other four spots you can fit in to make the deck still functional. But man, is that card so value, and I feel like it just lets the deck get so unpunished with its tamers, with the consistency it can hit one in security and play it out. Especially, then it doesn't even let you kind of play the counterplay where you hold back and try and take them out, which is usually the counterplay to tamer strategies. Hold back, don't hit their security, finish them off all at once. So if they hit a bunch of tamers, they're not going to just take advantage of you with it. You don't get that choice of Shine. They just play them out of there for free easily, but it's not even like yellow play. It's just what they do.
Yeah.
So that's mine if they want to hamper the deck a bit, but not just ruin it. I think if they actually hit something, it'll probably be the 4-cost Marcus, which I don't think they should hit. But I think, that or hit burst mode and put it at 1. And just make the deck not be able to go top and just consistently. They've already seen they've played rune mode at 1. People are only running 2 burst modes in the first place most part. Just hamper that top end a little bit, and it probably will control the deck down a bit to not be as oppressive as people think it is.
No, for sure. So that leads me to another question that we'll ask in a second. But Tusa, did you have any thoughts that you want to put on the topic?
No, I think you pretty much got the highlights of what I was thinking about too.
Yeah, no, for sure. I feel like we all kind of feel the same. It's actually very interesting that we're all landing on the same page for this, that it just doesn't need to get hit, but it's also the strongest deck. So, okay, so if we don't all agree that it doesn't get hit, hypothetically, if something did get hit, what would you guys hit and why? Would you try to kneecap the deck? I mean, Eric just gave his point. So for Noot and Muachee and Tusa, what would you guys hit in the deck? Would you guys try to kneecap the deck completely? Or would you try to bring it down to a level where it just feels a little bit more fair versus a lot of the other decks? Or what would you guys think that you would try to do?
I'm going to agree with Eric that the Geo Grey is really good. Mm-hmm. It might be the Geo Grey, if not the Geo Grey, the Burst. But those are my picks also.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Geo Grey for sure. But I didn't really want to start the OTK. You can hit the BT12 Shine. I think that one is what makes the deck really strong. And minus security and market gains +1. That enable the OTK super fast.
Fair. For me, I just want to protect my Bloomlord matchup. I don't really care about anything else. For me, it's just I feel like if I play Bloomlord into it, if I could hold a board for one turn, right, make it a little bit difficult you can't kill my Cherrymon and my Hydra. You just can't do it for free. Okay, let me keep one of them and I can deal with what you're trying to do and I can figure something out, but I just can't give it to you for free. So the 2 cards I would hit, goodbye Ruin Mode. I'm so sick of having my board minus 10k. No, thank you. At all. Get that card out of here if we're getting anything out in the matchup. But I'm Rise Greymon X. Quit chunking 6k or 4k or whatever it is. It's like 3k per tamer. So quit chunking my big guys. And then the other thing that I think that if I really could hit something else, it would probably be those 2 are kind of the big DP minusers. I think that it would be limiting the Marcus to the one that is a memory tamer and a suspend minus 3k. We still have the other memory tamer Marcus that lets you gain a memory on attack and everything, but just having having just so much DP minus that's just so free flowing is just a little bit too much. It's just like -3, pop some of this 3k or less, Digivolve, and then getting the free Digivolves too. So when you're bringing out all these free tamers and then having a mini Shinegreymon and Rise X, I just really don't like that. That's not my favorite part, because you're hitting my 15k Quartzmon for way too easy and way too simple. You're also hitting my, like I just said, my Hydramon into my Cherrymon setup. Those are big Digimon. That's 13k and 7k. That's 20k worth of DP minus in one go. So I think that if we hit those 2 things, it would be a little bit easier to play into, because now you can play some decks that can board cards. More decks that live on the board have more of a chance, right? Once you get up into your level 6, if you can make multiple stacks, that's kind of your goal. Maybe it's build a stack on the board, build a stack in raising, but it just gives you a line of play, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, for me, just from playtesting it and playing against it, I really don't like the forecast Marcus, because honestly, once your opponent sees like 2 of those, you're pretty much sitting in a bad situation there, because you know they could just go into the guys for free, and if they can play it right, they can get all the way to the level 6 and 7, and you just lose right there. And those free evils are just too good.
Yeah.
And like they don't care if it dies, because it just died, they should recover it.
Super true. Super true. No, I think free evolution is something to be talked about, especially when it's not, there's no cost. You're swinging with the cards, so you're getting an aggressive advantage, and then you're getting this crazy resource advantage too in the same go. So that makes sense to me too. Getting off of the direct meta, because we've been talking about these same 6 decks for a really long time now, kind of zooming out a little bit and looking at the Digimon card game as a card game. For just having fun. What do you guys think that in the current iteration right now, what do you think the worst color is? And I feel like there's a lot of parameters. I'll let you guys just kind of put whatever parameters you want on your answers and stuff, but what is the worst color in the card game right now, and why? For whatever reason you want to go with.
Worst color.
Actually, with this one, I'll start this one out. Everybody at home is just gonna have to listen to me talk for a little bit for this run. For me, I think that the worst color, so what I'm looking at is the deck that has the least amount of, or the color that has the least amount of decks in the meta, and then also the color that has like the weakest representation kind of going out and through. And it's really hard to say, because a lot of decks have been kind of in and out of the meta, but I think that when you're looking at the grand scale of everything and looking at kind of like all the decks, I feel like it's really hard to say this, but I want to say it's black. I know that black has strong decks, and then they have Greymon. That's the big thing that makes it hard to say that it's black. Is the weakest is that they have the Greymon line, and Greymon's really strong, but right now Greymon's not the best deck in the meta. It has a hard time fighting things like Hunters and stuff, and I feel like when you're looking at the grand scheme of decks altogether, right now Black has like Machinedramon pioneering it. Machinedramon, Greymon, and Belphemon are the 3, and none of those decks are taking events very aggressively. They're all decently strong decks, but I don't feel like they're necessarily as strong as some of the like tier 2 decks. When we're going down the list of tier 2 decks that are doing pretty decent, like Belphemon and stuff like that, I think that right now Black has a hard time finding a champion to fight everything, at least, and to have strong representation, right, when we're looking, because even looking through all the other colors, I think a lot of colors have a lot of decks. Blue has Blue Flare Mirage on top of Melga being like kind of a tier 2 or maybe a tier 3 deck or whatever, right? Because it can still be an aggressive pop-off deck. But Red has a few decks as well. But yeah, no, I think I'm calling Black.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on Black. I mean, if we're talking like stipulations, I think kind of putting a little asterisk on it. If we're talking a color that is solo color, as in you only build the deck with just that color, I think yellow as a solo color is by far the weakest right now. I think the only reason yellow's good right now is because of its two color red cards,
Mhm.
and that's really because of the red portions with the yellow portions added on. Like all this minus DP stuff from Shine would not be that good if that's all it did, because that's like 6 sets ago. It's all the minus DP where you combo it with free digivolving, extra security checks, free tamers turning into Digimon. All that stuff feels way more red than it does yellow. You know,
Yeah.
and so, like, if I'm talking, like, if you guys, I think yellow is like the objectively worst as a standalone, but I think black is the worst as an overall color because it's just not as splashable. Yeah, you can talk about Greymon, but like you said, it's not that great right now. And even when you do that, though, the comparative added of the black portion of Greymon is just so much worse than any other color you look at where it's doing it. The only thing I think that kind of also adds it in there is maybe blue, actually. Sorry, Muachee. I think blue is at a really bad spot right now, even with its good decks. It's a lot of like tier 2 decks, and like I don't feel like they're even really pushing to tier 1.5. They kind of are with some of them, but it's really on that cusp. And compared to its previous format, I think it's in its lowest point it's ever been.
No, this is a good point. Touching on blue really quick as well. I feel like with blue, it's hard to say blue for me. I didn't call it for the weakest because it has Blue Flare and Mirage right now, which are objectively very strong decks. But when you're looking kind of at the grand scope, I guess we don't have things like Blue Green Rookie Rush anymore, and we don't have things like Melga being like the #1 deck in the meta. So, but I'm interested to see what everybody else kind of thinks too, because there is one other color that I do want to bring up if nobody else brings up, but I don't want to take it away from you.
Sure. I guess I can go. Man, you guys kind of took my answers. I do think that like, it's hard because I have a hard time saying black just because like Jimmy, what you were saying, because you usually associate black, like the strongest black to be like black red with Greymon, and yeah, I don't know if I have anything else to add to that. You know, I don't. Yeah, you guys can skip me on this one because you guys basically mentioned everything that was on my mind. Tusa, what about you?
I ramble too much. That's my issue. I was.
That's okay.
Oh, do you count white as a color?
Yes, I do. Thank you for bringing it up.
I disagree on that. I think white's great right now. Royal Mace is fantastic.
One deck. We're talking about the grand scope.
Yeah, but if you think about it,
suck right now.
But it's the portion of the cards that compared printed to it compared to how much it's in the meta.
Yeah.
If you can think about it, it's 1/15 at most of the cards printed, but it's the top 3 to 4 deck. That seems like a fantastic spot to be in for a color that only gets 1/15 of the printing.
That's fair. I'll let Tusa talk for a little bit here.
I don't know, like how do we like identify like a deck, right? Do we do it on legs or like the majority of the cards in there? Because like the only monocolor white is just Eosmon and D Reapers.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have like Royal Knights that plays white eggs, but then different colors.
No, I think looking at this this topic, I think it's best to approach it from a little bit of a like take a step back and just really let it be however you want to address it, right? So if you want to focus it more, because I feel like when we're talking about the cards, right, you can even look at Jijimon. Jijimon's a deck that's mostly red, but it has white splashed in. And if those white cards in a package, right, when you're looking at just Sistermons, they can fit into other decks. You can play them in other Royal Knights decks, and you can play them in other archetypes of Royal Knights cards and stuff, and they are always splashable, but how impactful are they when you take them from Jijimon and put them in other decks? So looking at that white package, right, that's a way to look at it. Or if, like you're saying, when you're looking at even D Reapers, the first time we played D Reapers was yellow-white, but I would still consider that a yellow deck. So I think if you look at it kind of abstractly, however you feel like it, anything can be a white deck. Just explain why.
Generally speaking. Oh, my bad. Yeah, go ahead.
No worries. I think that's a good point too. Why Eric brought up like yellow as an identity versus like Shine, because Shine doesn't feel like a yellow deck. Shine feels like its own identity of like yellow red, and it doesn't seem to really do like what we traditionally think of as yellow decks. That's why, yeah.
No, yeah, it's a great note.
Yeah, honestly, I think yellow sucks. All the new yellow cards aren't really that. They're not that good. Especially the new mechanic for yellow is barrier, and barrier's not that good in effect, especially for yellow.
No,
yeah, not there anymore. Ever since Lord Nightmon, the yellow packages have never been good. The cards just never. It's always been underwhelming.
Yeah, I feel like everybody, like every couple sets, try to bring War Greymon back as the main yellow deck, and it just never works. But everybody tries it because everybody remembers how cracked that was, right? But yeah, no, yellow is a good point.
I do want to add that though. Yellow Hybrid is fantastic too. So come on now.
From like what BTA?
It got banned out. It got banned out immediately. No, that's because it was too good. Well, it's not because it was too good. It was because it was too degen. But I definitely agree with you though.
Do you consider security control a yellow deck? I kind
That's
of
a good question.
I do consider security control a yellow deck personally because of the identity of it. So when we're talking about touching on what Eric was talking about with the DP minusing being one of the identities, when you're looking at all the Digimon different colors, every deck has usually either one big thing that it does or two. Green has cost reduction as well as suspending your opponent's Digimon. Black has de-digivolve as well as destruction. Red has destruction as well as big security bombs. Blue has extending with resource extending and searching really well. So when you're looking at yellow, I think the two big things that it does is DP minusing, but then the other thing is healing. And security control has been a deck in every single meta since it was introduced. Well, there's been a variant at the very least. Even if you can't say it wasn't very playable in the meta, there's at least been a current variation of security control.
Yeah, I would say security control is more like yellow, pretty much.
Yeah.
You do a double covering. That's like the big part of it.
Muachee, how do you feel?
Yeah, I think security control is basically kind of yellow. Cause I know when you put the deck, you put yellow eggs, and then you want to see the yellow tamer. And then I think the problem with the deck is it always keeps recovering, but all the recover cards are yellow.
Yeah, no, it's really fair. So looking at also zooming out and looking at Digimon, looking at where it's played at the local level, right? It's one of the big things that people talk about constantly is how long do games survive, and how are we able to keep our stores open, right? Our mom and pops open, able to get product and keeping things flowing, things like that. Looking at where we're at in the, not just in the current meta, but in the current landscape of where Bandai's releasing their online events. They do a lot of online events that are very important for every single card game. We have regionals and cups, essentially. That's kind of where it actually gets split up in every single game. There's regionals series of cards or events, and then there's cup series of events, and we have that in Digimon, One Piece, Dragon Ball, and it's coming to Battle Space is a little bit different because they have the Pro Tour and stuff. So, but looking at how Digimon's constantly, or not just Digimon, Bandai's constantly throwing events. We talked about with Eric a little bit earlier about how we had a 4-man at one of our biggest stores at, I'm pretty sure you were at TTT for the Saturday local. So that's one of our biggest Minnesota stores, and having only 4 people there is crazy. So zooming out a little bit outside of just being players and being players who enjoy our locals, how is this current path that Bandai's on, that they've been on for a really long time, pushing these brand new online events very consistently, and we've been seeing it ramp up. This year's regional run has been a little bit more aggressive than we had last year, right? We lost our championships and stuff like that, but we have just like so many events to play in this year. And when we have these weekends where just nobody makes it to locals because everybody's playing online events, it's one thing when it's just an Digimon online event, so it's Friday, that's different. But when you have Digimon, One Piece, and then a Battle Spirits event too, so that's maybe for a card shop that could be their Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that they're also pairing their biggest local tournaments, and it's overlapping with Bandai's events. Just kind of in general, how do you guys feel like that? Do you guys feel like it's totally fine, or do you think that there might be a little bit of a problem with that? And why do you guys feel like that? I know that's kind of a very zoomed out question. It has a lot of different ways that you can take it, but I just want to hear your guys' opinions, because Eric, just for your example, you've just played in a round robin, right? While all of us were in the group chat, the same group chat, talking about our tournament, right? So we were all technically playing Digimon together, but this was one of the times where we were doing it separate.
Yeah, I'll start off quick just because I feel like I'm the unique. I never play any online events, so I'm the person that'll show up to stuff in person when everything's going on. But I think it's fine. I mean, even if they weren't doing online events, they would hopefully be doing in-person regionals, which I'd attend more often. You know, when there's big in-person regionals, people are gone for the weekend too, and events like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and everything like that. It's expected in card games people to be gone. I feel like the online events aren't. They're happening, but it's kind of in waves. You know, we're in a heavy season right now, and even Gen Con, I feel like Gen Con was a unique experience for us because the biggest thing is a lot of our friends were playing because there was just so few registrants for all the tournaments. So it was just really good chance of getting good prizing and placing well with so few people. So a lot of people that didn't usually play were rushing and doing it because they also could get in the last second. So they got to not have to worry about registering months in advance, and hopefully you're available still when you get to it, you know. So I think not a big deal. We'll see how it plays out in the future, but the game still is happy, and everyone can take a week off every once in a while. It's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also participated in that 4-man tournament. I thought it was fine. I mean, like Eric was saying that, like, it's kind of expected that it's going to be a little bit emptier that weekend, on those weekends, if there is like a lot of events happening. and it was just kind of unfortunate on that event. It was both Gen Con, the in person, and the what is it, the online tournaments were happening. So a lot of us weren't able to make that one. It was on Saturday, yeah,
Yeah.
the Saturday tournament, but it was still fun, and I was going in fully expecting that if we didn't have enough people, that I was totally fine with not playing.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, just go ahead, Dusa.
Oh, it's one of those chill days, especially when you do those like bigger events, like when tabletop hosts those like box tournaments or those showdowns, whatever you call it. We'll just like get packed in there, so I'm never too worried about it.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, the biggest thing, I guess the only point of concern, right, is that when we have multiple events. So we all play multiple card games. A lot of us play One Piece and Digimon consecutively, but I play a lot competitively too. And when you have these events coming out, I know that sometimes they do it like back to back. So right now we have Gen Con this week, and for One Piece particularly, it's a little bit different than Digimon. We had Gen Con this week for One Piece, and then we have online regionals again next week for One Piece, and that's just another event that people aren't going to be going to local. So I feel like where we're at now, I totally agree with all you guys that I think that it's totally healthy and fine. But I think we are teetering a little bit on where we really need to consider what we're doing with the concept of it, right? Because if it is, because it's so beneficial for Bandai, I'm sure they make a good amount of money from it, because it's just, a bunch of people paying a premium to play in the tournament, right? And then they're just essentially selling us these packs of product, right? And then we get to play out. So I know that they're going to continue to do it, but if we ever get into a point, right, where as a Digimon One Piece player, you're playing for like a month straight of just online events, whether it's super competitively or just trying to make like the extra cash, I think that would take away a little bit from the local scene, and that could be super dangerous, because even looking at where we're at, one reference is the Battle Spirit scene. One of the things that's really hurting the Battle Spirit scene in general right now is the fact that we don't have a lot of big local groups. So when people do come, it might be your first time going to a Battle Spirits tournament, and you might not be able to play in it because there's not enough players that show up. So if that seeps into other things, that gets scary, because how often do we see new Digimon card players coming to Viral for the first time? And it's like a Friday, and it's the 12 of us, we're all hanging out for Oppas, but then you have all of our groups of friends that come, the couples, the homies that are coming from work, and whatever else, right? And we have this big high energy event, and then we have these new players that are coming back every single week. I think that it gets scary when that might go away, because lots of the players are competitive, and if they're competing in multiple card games especially, you might have to miss 2 weeks in a row of locals and not show up to your favorite card shop. So I think that's something that's scary. But how do you feel about it, Muachee?
Yeah. I mean, I do agree that, for Gen Con this week, we had a lot of events, so obviously people have other priorities, and we want to have a lot of people for logos.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most of the time that only happens like maybe once a month or something, where everyone is busy that week and we can choose and pick. I think that's what I got to say.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's a good point. And it doesn't happen super consistently right now. I think that just looking at how much we're picking up, we do have a lot more online events currently than we ever had before. And if that number just continues to increase, right? Because I don't think there's ever been a point where we have like so many events that we're competing like every weekend for like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Usually it's just one, and then we have a couple weeks break. But this is the first time with the One Piece event that we're seeing 2 back to back. But with how big Gen Con was, right, we're talking about kind of how big that was and how many people were attracted to that tournament and stuff. It was a big deal for a lot of TCGs. Is there any way that we can bring that level of energy to a local kind of, I'm not saying 1,000 people in a local store, but I mean like that level of excitement? Because like what we were excited for was competing in the regionals, right, or competing in the Ultimate Cup, and competing for these different for different reasons, right? Some of it's placing, some of it's invites, some of it's prizing, right? But it's all for different reasons that are definitely achievable at different levels, right? I feel like they can bring it down and bring some stuff to different stores. But what do you think it would take to bring a high level store event that's way higher level than store championships? We've seen how good store championships are, and they are feasible, but I think we all have been to like an in-person regional that's a little bit more oomph. There's just a little bit more there, right? A little bit more context with those bigger events. I know that for me, one thing that I would really like to see, because we've talked about this quite a bit on the team, and we've brought it up a couple times on the podcast, but I think that I would like to see store-held regionals, right? We've talked about how old school Konami events have done, where they host an event, they give it to a store, the store gets to host it, and usually it's at like a convention center, or maybe you have to travel like 2 hours or whatever to go play at the spot. But at the end of the day, what you get is this really unique experience. So if we had something, I think like an Ultimate Cup or any cup, right? Any cup across any game or any regional across any game, and we got it to be hosted by like Viral Card Games, right? And we were able to have it where it's like 2 hours away. We're gonna go play on a weekend for our invites as opposed to like a Friday Saturday thing. I think that would be something that's really really healthy to bring to the local level, because all of us are so excited for playing in these bigger events. And there's only really one version of the bigger events. We have Nats, that's in person, that's a really big event, and we have some cons. But then the only other time that we get to play in events is webcam events throughout the year. So that's something I think that they could do, is definitely bring some of those online events to in person in the same structure that we've seen in the past with Konami, for sure.
Oh, yeah, Jermaine. So yeah, I do kind of agree with you. I think having those at local level will be great, because I know in Japan they had like local level of Ultimate Cup, and then I think that's what we kind of need too.
Actually, that's such a good point. I totally forgot about that for their structure. Yeah, the Ultimate Cups were like closer to store levels, but it was the same thing for the One Piece cards. So for the One Piece events, they were like the store championships, and then they had all of their different championships as well.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the game itself could potentially be so much more fun if like all these like, I mean, every big online tournament you always hear all this drama about like some guy cheating, some guy getting caught cheating, and that always like takes away a lot of fun. Like I'm like constantly questioning now if the loss that I got was really deserved. I'm like, man, like should I have paid more attention? Like was he doing stuff? But like that, I think that really saps away a lot of the fun out of the card game, and like having, I mean, obviously people if people are gonna cheat, they're still gonna cheat whether in person or not. But it would be a lot more fun just in person, and like Nats was fun, going all the way to the Cali was fun, but it would be nice if we could just like I don't know, like drive a few hours away for like a regional. That would be really fun.
Or have more road trips to Chicago, or have more road trips to because this is something. So for the One Piece players in Minnesota, they are experiencing something pretty different, because they have had a couple trips to Chicago over the past year, and they've had a couple trips that they can go that's only like less than 6 hours, we'll say, or whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you want to travel to, right? As long as it's travelable to in your area, it's all the same thing. Whether you want to travel 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, it's gonna feel the same to you because you're willing to do it. So for One Piece, it's a little bit different. Those guys we do have a couple regionals that are in the Midwest, on the East Coast, West Coast, so they get to go to a couple more. But for Digimon, we don't see that at all. So, or if there's another kind of like structure that you guys could think of that would be like interesting for Bandai to kind of bring to a store level too. I think that would be cool too, because Muachee bringing up that they had like the Ultimate Cups at a store level, that's very true. That was like a 30 or 64 man Ultimate Cup or something like that too, right? So,
Jermaine, do you know what they need? They need better LTRs of cards that are playable. I don't need like LTRs of cards that are not playable.
That's a really good point.
But you have Psychmon and Psychmon and Psychmon.
Don't forget about Psychmon.
And Psychmon, yeah, the other great winter card, Psychmon.
Yeah, you need better incentives, like just like for like One Piece, like people play for the story chance of those events because the LTRs are better, because they're more playable and just look prettier. Instead of like an LTR or Demon, like Demon is nice, but I don't care about LTR or Demon. It looks the same. It's the same artwork too.
Mm-hmm. No, I think one interesting thing that they could do, kind of with the idea that I have with them splitting it between like having store hosted ones and online event ones, one of the things that really coax all of us into the different events that we do choose is the prize pool. So like for example, we have a teammate, Justin, who has an amazing collection of Digimon cards, and one of his favorite lines is the Vmon line. So Justin is always hustling for the new Vmon cards. If there's a Vmon or a Vmon line, in an Ultimate Cup or whatever, Justin is competing that season for sure. So I think that if they brought some pretty cool lines and they made it unique, so if they had a run of in-person regionals with a unique in-person regional set of cards with the same stamp structure as everything else, just a different lot of cards, doesn't need to be a better lot of cards, doesn't need to be like meta cards only for in-person, fun cards for online, or anything of the sort. But I think that if they just had something that's cool and unique, it really does coax people out to go to the different ones, right? So if we had something for regionals that are in person, something for the cups that are in person that is just different. And we've been seeing Bandai do a little bit with this, because for the past couple of regionals, they've been alternating the alternate art finalist packs, correct? where it's been like level 4s for one set of events, level 5s for the next one, and you're seeing people enter the different events for the different reasons. So I totally agree with you. If we got a little bit different pricing, but then if we take it one step further and then we separated the pricing altogether, where it's like you're playing for what you really want. Like for me, I'll play for Bloomlord green cards all day, whether that's online or in person or whatever. It's just like what I like, right? So to get me out there. How
You
much?
want to know what's kind of funny about like, the pricing cards is that um like no matter what card it is, if it's like a bump up in rarity, like you always get everyone whose reaction is either like, "Dang, now like if I want a max rarity, I have to like try to get this card now," or
For
like I
sure.
don't know. But for me, it's kind of funny because like whenever they give like a reprint like or an altered of like a really not so great card, I'm usually actually kind of happy because I always try to build like these really janky decks with cards that nobody uses. And like if there isn't a foil version of this card, I'm always kind of happy like yes, there's a version of this card now.
Even if it's just not that great. No, I feel
Yeah.
you.
No, I think you guys kind of hit it. I mean, I feel like obviously in-person regionals at a more, state or, more local level, you can partner with stores is great. Obviously, I feel like the old Konami days, it felt like a lot more stores used to have access to larger venues back in the day. And that's kind of been less of an issue where a lot of stores downsized over COVID. And now, we're still seeing good shops, but not necessarily enough to hold a regional unless you're renting out a convention center.
Hmm.
And that's just a lot of overhead with a lot of people that, due to the kind of days of COVID where, if they don't have experience with it, where they're already in a Konami, it's not something that are willing to take the risk on. It's a big dive. I'm sure it's a big monetary investment. And with Digimon and Bandai's current stance, I don't see him putting a lot of monetary investment into stores putting those things on, which is kind of my concern.
Hmm.
And I don't want it to be something that damages local stores where their stores are getting issues from the local community because they're not putting these big events on, even though they have the approval, but because they cost them thousands and thousands of dollars in losses to put these events on, that they don't really get any support for, and ends up making them just not supportable, make them too expensive that people don't want to play them with the pricing, and it's the extra overhead for in person is a big concern, and that's what makes regionals online so great. Is it's just manpower. You don't have to worry about renting a location.
Yep.
And again, I would love to play them in person, but I kind of get why Bandai's not doing it. It's a big money investment, and it's hard to justify the price, especially when you're not looking at your most competitive card game. We've talked about it in previous episodes. Digimon isn't really its competitive sell, so investing heavily in the competitive scene just doesn't get as much of a payoff.
No, that's a good point for sure. That's a super good point. I can totally see that being part of the reason why we see so many in-person events for One Piece. But I just feel like looking at it as a whole, it does need to expand a little bit. I think we just need something for Digimon, right? Other than just these online. But you just never know, right? Because if it's never a real issue, if we never really have an issue with people showing up to in-person events and it never really comes up, but it's just something to consider and kind of looking at some of the patterns that we've had in the past are a little concerning, but we just don't know. Kind of looking forward, but jumping kind of back into BT13 and looking at the meta, but not just about the decks in the meta. Usually around this point, right, we're getting pretty middle of the way between this set and next set, and this is kind of where people start to kind of slow down showing up to locals, not just for like as a store owner, but as players, right? People kind of slow down. They stop testing as much. They don't have their main deck that they need to learn if it's good or not. They don't have as many jank decks that they need to find out if they're good or not. So I've noticed that people historically have stopped showing up to events a little bit, or not just events, but local tournaments a little bit, or start slowing down, I would say, not necessarily not showing up. Do you guys feel like that'll continue in BT13, or do you think that things will change a little bit with how many different archetypes we got in this set, for as many people, or at least for how long it is, right? Because
Wait,
usually,
so
oh,
I'm curious. What's the identifier? Like you're saying at this point, but what makes this point this point?
usually
Like
like
after the big tournaments?
No, usually about like a month and a half into a set.
Okay,
Because usually about a month and a half into a set, when we're getting the EX cards, that's when we get the EX set release, and that's kind of the halfway point. And the EX set kind of comes in and revitalizes the format and makes everybody kind of feel good right at the point that they're starting to slow down and slug off, right? So I think that we're getting into the time frame that people are starting to slug off a little bit
I
and
see.
taking
Okay.
a little bit of a step back. Because excitement isn't as, I mean, BT13 isn't brand new. A lot of
Mhm.
people have lost to X deck a lot of times at this point, so they're getting to that point where they're looking for something new, I think. Well, but then again, maybe not. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I do think that it is kind of like it's gonna eventually happen, just where people get a little burnt out. I do think this set did do a really good job of not only like introducing a lot of new like archetypes, but like bringing like fresh tools for like old decks to play with too. Like we were just talking about purple. Like I like that they brought back new toys for like for old decks like Belphemon and oh man, what else did they bring? I don't know, but
A lot.
it was definitely more. Yeah, it was like all the bloom stuff.
Yeah, there's bloom
Like they
stuff.
did a
There's the
really good
shine
job with this
stuff.
deck.
Yeah, for
Hmm.
sure. We have the poop
There's
stuff, the chest stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Newt a lot on that. I actually think this format's going to be one of the strongest we've had in a long time, if not possibly like the strongest format we've had player retention for forever. I think the RB sets coming out, the reprint sets coming out here during this set, which I think is going to be nothing too crazy for us. I feel like the US Digimon scene doesn't really need the reprints that badly, but it'll be nice and definitely going to add something in. Will be some support for Gamamon lines, I think. But really, I think Bandai knocked this out of the park. At least for I'm going to kind of give this all in the scope of Minnesota Digimon, because in Minnesota Digimon, it's kind of a joke where no one's playing Shine. I didn't play a Shine matchup in the first 18 matches of tournament play of Digimon, the start of BT13. I played my first matchup against it this last weekend on Friday. And I've been to, I think, 5 or 6 local tournaments before then, and I just never matched up against it. I make jokes about it. We have a lot of Royal Knight players that are doing great, but no one's playing Shine. No one's playing the Royal Knight to counter Shines, and no one's playing Shine. So I don't feel like it's been that oppressive. The Royal Knights players were kind of oppressive at first for us, but now they're getting countered out by a lot of the decks building around them, and they're seeing online results for how to counter them out. And I'm looking forward to trying new decks, and I'm looking forward to trying a lot of new stuff. Mirage seems really fun. And I think there's going to be a good amount of messing around with stuff this format. And we've, seen a lot of innovative stuff. Like Millith coming out this format's crazy. It's kind of existed before, but never like the storm it's taken now. All the purple decks coming back besides it with, the Gizmon lines. And then just all support. I think we're just at a great spot where it's a lot of decks compete. And anyone who's got a color they like, maybe minus Machinermon and Black because it's pretty tough right now,
For sure.
is having a great time.
Wait, how long is? Wait, when do we get the new set? Is it like September?
The reboot booster set, I did want to touch on this too, doesn't come out till the end of September, so we do have a long time still. We have the rest of this month, and we still have all of next month to play the set too. At least from
so
what
like
I Googled.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But,
Yep.
Back to what you're talking about before, right? With the regional results, it showed us that not one deck is good. So even if you board one deck, you just rotate around. So for me, I don't feel like I'll get bored just because all these different decks are doing just as well. So it's enough that will entertain me to the next set.
Okay. I know for me.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Muachee.
Yeah, I like how this new set it does help all the old decks. We got a lot of support. So like, even though, for example, I play Shine, I'm done with it now. I'm tired of that deck, so I went to play Mirage Goggle for my other tournament. And since I did that, I'm kind of done with that too. But I have other decks to play because there's so many support for a lot of decks for this set.
No, yeah, just echoing what you guys have said. I think the support for this set has been really, really good, but I think that the way they did it is really, really interesting. So when you kind of look at the set as a whole, the big thing that we got was the Royal Knights cards, but each one of those kind of go into not necessarily just their own separate deck, but they each have at least an archetype that they can fit in. And I think that's something that's really unique that we see even with the card design when we touched last week on the way they designed the cards for this meta and how that they act. I think that the way they designed what cards they're putting into the pack is actually really, really interesting. So when you're looking at the Royal Knights package, right, you can take any of those and add them to their own boss monsters, but they actually added in the archetypes to support them as well. So for Jesmon, we have a whole new Jesmon line that's way better than any other Hookmon line that we've had so far, right? Even for Alphamon, we have the new Alphamon, we have a new Greymon, which is just really important, and our new Darugamon, I think is the name of it, and those were really important to add to the line. So I think that when you're looking at what they kind of put in, they've put in a lot of cards to support the cards, not just like new cards and new decks and things like that, but just a wide range of cards to experiment with. And with so many cards being good, I think that they just released a lot of really, really balanced cards in this current meta, and I think that's where people are having a lot of fun because, like you said, like if you get bored playing Shine, then you get bored playing Mirage. We still have Belphi, Royal Knights, Blue Lord, Blue Flare. The list goes on. Greymon, every version of Greymon, Hunters, right? And that's just for talking about the decks that can top. And then there's all of the decks that you can have fun with, right? Security control, but I think that looking at what there still is to do in the format, do you guys have any decks that you're still looking forward to building that you haven't done yet, or what is the next move for you guys? Are you guys not necessarily just because you're tired, but do you guys have any projects that you're working on?
Not really. I mean, I do like making those jank decks. Like, for example, I recently made Chaos Gallon because we got the new Gallon card.
Yeah.
And then, what was it? Now, I'm looking forward to making, Leopardmon. So, like, Leopardmon deck.
Nice.
No, for sure.
Chaos Gallon that you win 3-1 with that locals.
I still went undefeated for that one. I was
you undefeated, that's right, I forgot. Oh my gosh, it was you and me that went undefeated. Oh no.
Yeah, I was undefeated with Chaos Gallon. I was surprised.
Hey, but if it gets there, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, I'm constantly trying a bunch of random jank. Not all of them works. One thing I'm kind of looking forward to trying again is trying to make Victory Greymon work. The EX4 one. That one's like really fun to play with. I like want to do some really weird stuff with when the Metal Greymon Ace comes out. Like there's gonna be some really fun interactions with that. So
nice. For you, Noot, because you're always playing something jank, what are all of your drink decks that you're messing with right now? Because I feel like I've played you like 2 or 3 times already today.
Yeah, so obviously my most recent one, the Chanthamontry's not ready because when I saw like the what is it, the stuff with the new purple stuff that's coming out EX5, it made me think about like trying to do something with Chanthamont, but it's not ready yet.
Okay.
Let's see, Craniumon, that was really fun. I think that deck is gonna stay the way it is just because it's gonna be like fun and consistent enough where I can, if I wanted to introduce someone to play like Digimon, I can just give them that deck and it would be strong enough yet simple enough to pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I'll keep that deck regardless. Let's see, different variations of Greymon. Obviously Belphemon. I was for a while I was kind of thinking, oh yeah, I had like that Gaiomon where I used like the Belphemon base and then just make like 2 really big stacks of Gaiomon and then go into Ragnarlord. That one was really fun, but it wasn't good.
Okay.
I think that's about it for now. There's definitely others, but not any that kind of sticks to my mind right now.
No, I also have some jank stuff I'm working on that I think that people will think is pretty funny. But I think I'll go really quick here. For decks that I'm still building in the main meta and like that are actually like decent decks, I'm still building Belphemon. I have all my Belphemon secret rares and stuff like in a box someplace here, like it's actually pretty close to me. But I just have not put them all together. I think I'm missing like one cool boy or something like that, and I've let that hold me back for the entire meta from sleeving the deck. So I'm excited to do that finally, just because I really want to play like things like Breath of the Gods consistently and Kongu and like stuff like that, just to be an anti-meta deck. So as far as like being competitive and like wanting to like win a lot, I really want that deck. But as far as fun, there's so many decks that I want to build. So right now, all you guys know I'm on Leopardmon for my main green deck, and I've been playing a lot of Leopardmon with Jijimon. That's been really, really fun. Leopardmon kind of comes down and is a really interesting boss monster for the green archetype. One of the biggest things that it can do is Digivolve and raising and keep its same amount of value. So if you're playing like the chess game where you're waiting for your opponent to raise out so you can respond and then gain control on the board that way, one thing that you can do is Digivolve into your Leopardmon that I like, raise up on the next turn, activate the effect to reduce the cost by 4. And depending on how much memory you have, because we have things like Mimi, the Dual Tamer Mimi, Izzy and stuff that really help you set up to high memory counts. You can play out a card. If you have a Panyamon underneath your Leopardmon, that card has Rush. Digivolve that into your new Jijimon. Digimon only costs 3. You can build out a board, and you can have this kind of cool build a board and then go face, but with Leopardmon Leopard mode, you can just unsuspend everything. And the other thing that I've actually switched in, instead of playing the Leopard mode, I've actually been testing with the new EX4 Black Gargomon that gives 2 Digimon, blocker, and reboot, just kind of all turns, which leads me into the next deck that I also want to kind of test out as well. But I think that a couple really good points, right? Because whenever I'm building a jank deck especially, right, I like to highlight the best thing that the deck can do, and I like to kind of have that be the focal point of what the deck wants to do. And one of the things that I've noticed with the Black Gargomon and with what Jijimon wants to do is we can go into Quartzmon very, very efficiently. So by building a board like 2 or 3 Digimon, that's a +1 memory when you're Digivolving the Quartzmon. And then you have all of your Taiga Tamers and stuff like that can reduce, and they tap themselves down. So you get full tap value when you're going into your Quartzmon. But by going into a Black Gargomon as your second Digimon, you can reboot your Quartzmon every turn and give your Quartzmon blocker, so that you don't have to fall into that category of your opponent getting that chip damage, and then they put a Digimon in raising, and then the game just becomes finished. So I think that's something that's kind of cool. It's pretty jank. I really like jank ideas like that, and that's really like what I like to do. But the other deck that I'm really thinking about going forward with is with all the different green Digimon that we have right now, and all of them having just these crazy activate main, just all turns or end of your turn effects that aren't just when digivolving or when attacking. I really want to go back to green Gotcha. I really want to go into a free Black Mega Gargomon. I really want to go into some free Ebon Wumons, tax my opponent, and then I also just kind of want to find some black green protection where I can build a card, build a board, and then play a card like Breath of the Gods to give that big card reboot, and then also protect it from DP minus. So that's something that I'm thinking about trying. We have a lot of black green level 5s and a lot of black green level 6s as well, because we just got the whole Black Gargomon line. So lots of things that you can do with that line and kind of shoving it into a deck. But there's a lot that you can do with the jank portion of Digimon right now, which is fun. But how about you guys? Do you guys have any decks that you're looking at, just either whether it's jank or regular format, right, for the rest of the BC13 meta?
I mean, currently my jank that I'm making is Jesmon GX Turbo. You know, I'm using the whole new Alphamon line because we have they introduced new Alphamon and then the whole new line. So the idea is, each of the 5 and 6 can put something underneath the source. So we just keep putting other nice underneath, which is Alphamon.
Yep. That's a really good point too.
Yeah, because the Jesmon GX gains +1 security for every very nice we have, and piercing, and blitz.
Yeah, that could be pretty solid for sure.
For me, I feel like playing some annoying decks. I play Sukumon and maybe some kind of variant of security control with some jank stuff there.
No, for sure. I have a security control deck. I think that deck is just full meta, in my opinion. I think it's just super good, but it's still super fun.
As for me, I'm not I like making janks occasionally, but honestly, most of the time I get them built, and then I just don't end up wanting to playtest them because I want to playtest more good decks. Because I've got all of the cards besides one Mirage Galgamon for Mirage Galgamon, Bloomlord Update, Belphemon, all of them I want to play. I've got Shine built, and I barely touched it. I've played like one game with it, I think, if even. So I've got like 4 decks that are all really good that I really want to play. I've just been nonstop crushing Royal Knight and Hunter too. I've been playing some Hunter. Hunter's really fun right now, and I played it a lot last meta, but I'm just really enjoying it in this meta. Once you run into Craniumon, because man, I'll tell you, I played against Noot with that, and that was not a good time.
Oh man,
I couldn't hit a tamer for the life of me in security. And that man just sat there with 1 stack, and we put a second stack out. I couldn't even interact with the Restaurant. I sent a judge ruling into the chat actually about it, asking. I think Muachee and Tusa both responded to it in the middle of our game, asking if I could do anything with the Restaurant into the new Craniumon. It was just nope, can't do anything. And I'm like, well, I'm just gonna lose this matchup then.
No, for sure. Okay, so moving on from that topic, I think that was really, really interesting. Actually, it was really cool hearing about the decks that you guys have kind of sleeved up. I can't wait to play against some of them. But where we're at in the Digimon meta right now, right? We haven't had a tournament promo that's been super exciting, at least in my opinion. I'd actually like to hear your guys' opinions on the tournament promo program that we have right now. How do you guys think about the program's health right now?
So you're referring to like the which? Can you go
TP
elaborate?
packs.
The
TP packs.
Oh, like tournament
entry packs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a spot. So we haven't really had the last good one we had was probably arguably like BT6, and even that's arguable, and that's because they were unique cards with the survive, the Gamamon line, or not, sorry, just like the Gamamon, Jellymon, and them, they were unique, so that's the only reason it was worth anything. But looking back one step further, the TP5 was back in the good old day. That was one of the greatest TP packs we ever had. Probably minus TP1 back when we got all the tamers that we wanted with their new full art cards, lots of reprints in it. You got 4 cards for each pack, and sure, most of them weren't that playable. Don't get me wrong, but we were getting a lot of very playable cards in those packs. Along with some very good tamers. And they missed some. We can talk about Sora instead of Ty, but overall, everyone's happy that they got their playset of TKs, because TKs before that TP drop, the tournament pack drop, were like $10 a pop for rares. Because they're just hard to find. Yep. And that was a huge boon to the set. Mimis as well. Mimis were like $6, $7, $8 at the time before they got their full art with that. Yep. So, but looking at that, it's definitely been a really dry spell for a long time. I'm super happy with getting the taper packs with the security rookies, even though they're not that good. At least it's something playable and not just a old card that has nothing that you can possibly ever use for, and an alt art that doesn't even necessarily look that much better than the regular art. And slightly, actually a TP card worth keeping instead of just potentially putting in your bulk and forgetting about forever. So it's good trends. Hopefully they keep it up. Always a fan of something, even if it's not necessarily playable, just something a bit more unique than a random, we're going with the Monzimons guy.
Yeah.
I like Bears as much as the rest of us, but we don't need more Monzimons.
No, for sure. Even things like, I feel like the Patamons and stuff and Salamons, I have so many that are just kind of sitting out, and they're not, it's just because, I guess it's because they're not really used rookies in any of the decks. Maybe that touches on what we were talking about with yellow just not being very strong. But for me, I haven't been excited for a TP in a while. It's really exciting having these new ones with the security rookies. They all look fantastic, and I think that them being meta staples is a big part of it. But I think that it needs a little bit more excitement just for the TPs in general. I have more to say too, but we'll circle back to it.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have much of an opinion on the TP packs because I guess they've always just been kind of like there for me. I'm just like, okay, I don't have much to compare them for like when you were talking about all like the good old TP packs back in the day. I don't know what they were like. So
let me ask you, Noot, do you have a pile of unopened tournament pack entries someplace?
Nope.
Oh,
I have a pile of Salamons. I have a pile of Salamons I don't use though.
No, for sure. I know for me, I've got boxes of tournament.
Oh,
packs.
dang.
Yeah, no, I could do like a 20-minute opening video on just opening promos for sure for Digimon. So, how about you guys, though? How does everybody else feel about the general health of the tournament pack right now?
I like when they do like reprints for the tournament packs. Okay. Like I believe the newest one is a reprint of the security rookies, which is pretty nice. And I believe what it's like Eric said, that second best one was when they reprinted like the TK and the Mimis. Because I think we can all agree we don't like it when they do a reprint, like different alternate art or like cards that no one uses, like Salamon.
For me, I know a lot of people like it's debatable. I like cards that are just exclusive to it because there's more value to it, right? Like the TP1, we get the special Diabormon, the Tamer one from the Gamma line, and those. And sure, the reprints of Tamer were good too, but it gives you an incentive to go to locals. Well, not incentive, but another reason to go to locals, right? It feels like you got your value.
Incentive is the correct word. It's an incentive. Absolutely.
I opened 25 packs of TP1 when I joined, which was at the end when TP1 was available. I never pulled a single Diabormon. I didn't pull one.
Yeah, that'll happen.
The only Diabormon security check that I have to this day is the one I got from the one EX Classic collection that came with. There was a chance you could get it as one of the promo ones, or it's the foil. I got that in odds on, the only one. Less of a chance of getting it than TP1, mind you. Because TP1 there was less cards to hit. Yeah. But so I'm personally not a fan of completely unique stuff. I think if you're gonna do that, just pick something super playable and print an alt art, and just do something that's a money reprint from stuff. Reprint an old SR that's still got value. Make Magna Angemon could have been a TP pack. Make that we get a winner card.
Mm-hmm. Have they ever done like a variety where it's like the pack includes both cards that haven't been printed and like alt arts of like old cards?
In other card games they have. So touching on before
Oh.
Eric, I'll let you finish. I'll let you
Yeah, you're
respond
in.
to this
Oh,
first.
yeah.
No,
But one thing to touch on, so we're looking at Bandai as kind of like a company across all their card games, right? So for Dragon Ball and for Battle Spirit Saga as well, they both have Dragon Ball. It's every single set. They have archetypes in the main set, and then for the past few sets, they've always had exclusive cards for the tournament promos, and a lot of times they were support for past archetypes. But what they've been doing recently is having one card that's usually a pretty key point or like just a good part of the deck be just in the tournament promos as well. And it is a big incentive for people to get out and go to their local tournaments. It does wall you out. There's a good and bad, right? It does wall some players out of being able to play certain archetypes. But I'm really big on, if you really do want to play an archetype, right? You can play it without every card that you, if a card is just too expensive, play the budget version, right? And until you can get there. But my thing with tournament promos, when you're looking at the history of tournament promos, both in Dragon Ball Super and Battle Spirits, just because they've been doing it so consistently, I think those are the best places to look at the data from. But when they have tournament promos, no matter how good and how meta impactful the tournament promo is, it always starts high, $20-$30 really, really high, but it always comes down to be a very low price just because everybody gets one eventually, right? Except for Eric, who never got a Beelstarmon in set one. But I think that when you have store tournament exclusive promos, they're a little bit different than when you're having these bigger event exclusive promos that are very impactful. Right, a lot of people have different feelings on the price of different cards, but I think that as players, I think that it is just beneficial for us to have a little bit of payback. If I can open a red Greymon card that goes for $20 or $30 or whatever and pay for 2 or 3 of my locals and I don't play that deck, I think that that's just really good for the game because I get a little bit of cash kickback to continue to play and continue to just put into the card game, right? And I just don't think that there's anything wrong with having sellable cards or cards that have value, for sure. So I personally think that if we did introduce exclusive cards to the tournament program or tournament pack program, it could be really beneficial for sure.
Yeah. So, kind of in response to that, this is something I wanted to bring up earlier, but I didn't get a chance to. Talking about the 4-person tournament at TTT that Newt and I were at. The other 2 people there was a couple of friends, actually, and I don't know, these were really nice guys, and I hadn't really seen them before at tournaments. I don't think I had played with them. They may have played at some, but they told me they mainly played at Battlegrounds, I think. But they said they really don't go to tournaments. They were friends that just play together, but these guys had every single meta deck from the past 4 formats built. Everything, they had them all, they played them all, and they're just like, we really don't go to tournaments that much. Like, we play each other all the time. They're like, we've tested everything back and forth nonstop. One of the crazy things is I was playing Hunter. They didn't even know about the U errata that you gain memories because even though they're black packs, they're like, I'm like, okay, yep, gain a memory. They're like, well, how do you gain a memory? I'm like, oh, you gains it. It's like it's a errata card. They're like, wait, really? That makes it so much better. I'm like, oh yeah, do you guys not know about that? What I'm talking about? But like, yeah,
wow.
We don't think about it, but these are people that are major Digimon spenders who just aren't in our scene but are local to us, But these guys, like, he talked about how like they're max rarity in their Royal Knight deck right now and they're almost done with it, which that's a money investment we all know here.
For sure.
So these are players that just aren't huge in the competitive scene, but they're huge Bandai supporters and they're huge money supporters to it. And these are people that if they didn't, if a TP pack dropped a unique card, they could potentially just never even get to play the deck the way it's supposed to be played if they don't know that it's a TP pack being dropped because they don't go to tournaments regularly. And, to me, that feels like it's an injustice because that means you have to go and spend time outside of playing the game and, and buying the cards you get to figure out how to even play the game correctly because you're investigating, like, well, what tournament packs are coming out? Are they printing cards that I need to get for my current decks? Do I have to be looking at meta results to build the deck correctly because, I can't just buy it and look at the set list of the cards I'm buying because if I join a card game, and I'm not a competitive card game player, I'm going to look at the card set lists, and that's what I'm going to think all the cards are. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to know to go and look at there's promos potentially that are unique, that are outside of the set list numbers that I've used to from all my previous card games, that are, if I don't go look at these specific promos that are listed and they're a giant hodgepodge of mostly useless, but potentially some very useful cards, I'll never find out the key gem, and, it's that or look up meta decks, like I said, I just think it keeps adding more and more barrier to entry to the game. That's not really a bit of a concern to all of us who can get into card games and have experience with it. But it stops the people from becoming professional players because it just adds more stuff in that they need to get and they need to learn before they can join in. And I mean, I definitely think, value is great. And those unique cards are always going to hold more value than a high value reprint of an alt art, even if it's a really useful card. Just inherently how the card's being new versus, reprint. Mm-hmm. But to me, that's why I think they really need to focus on, have one of the 6 cards in the tournament pack be a super super good SR reprint. A foil SR reprint that's like a $10+ card in one of each of the TPs, and then the rest of them maybe aren't as much, but there's still some chase that's maybe worth more. But it doesn't necessarily stop people from playing the game if they aren't aware of their local scenes. Or a lot of people play this game, they only play webcam. You're never going to get to play it unless they go buy it. They just buy singles. They'll never have a chance to earn a TP pack ever. I know a lot of people that will never earn one in their life.
No, for sure.
That play with online.
One thing though, with well, depending on how competitively you look at it, but you never, no matter how, if you're playing in a space, right, where you're only playing with like your friends and stuff like that, you don't need to be playing decks at the highest tier of level in the first place. But also with like looking at One Piece, for example, right, we have tournament event cards. The was it the regional or was it the Treasure Cup that had the exclusive like Bartolomeo and the Uta and stuff like that, and the Jinbei.
Yeah, the event pack 1.
It was event pack 1. So even for those, right, those are all boons and they're all crazy expensive. That's a different type of event pack, right? But even for those, right, they boost a handful of decks and bring them up to like a whole nother level, but you don't necessarily need to play them. You can definitely play blue without playing that Jinbei. But I feel like even if you don't know about the cards or you do know about the cards, you do have the option for everybody to buy the cards. And if you're doing things like buying a full art Royal Knights card, or even if you're on the internet a little bit, information flows pretty freely for these card games nowadays, so I feel like it is going to be kind of hard to miss a card entirely. But ultimately, if you do need the card, I think that a lot of people right now, we're not in a space where everybody's like opening packs to get their cards. Lots of people shop singles. Lots of people shop singles and can get their cards. So if you can log on to TCG Player, you can find everything, right? So you do have it like access to it, but I understand what you're saying too, where they just don't have that immediate information. So.
I actually disagree with that. I think there's a lot less. I think there's a lot more people that are just card rippers than you think compared to single buy. I mean, there's a lot of single buyers. I think single buyers is for sure the majority, but I think we just only see the almost all majority single buyers, even for the people that are card rippers, because I feel like probably most people that buy this game as a total all, if you look at it, there's probably a large portion that just buy cards to rip packs and only use what they rip. And that's the people that are playing by themselves at home. And I agree that you can't be full power. You don't need to be full power when you're playing locally with friends. But to me, it's the amount of extra steps you have to take between playing at home for fun. If I buy a case of a set, if I bought a case of every Digimon set that came out and wanted to play, I should have every single card in existence if I bought a case of every Digimon set. At least from a playable standpoint. Maybe I don't have a playset of all the secrets because I got unlucky on some of them, but like to me that means I bought all of Bandai's product and I spent all the money I can, and I opened it in their intended way, and that to me is how a game should be sold. But again, this is a personal opinion on it. I'm just not a big fan of limiting tournament prizes, so I'll leave it at that.
There's a lot of people out there that are
nothing to do with. I was just saying, you sure it had nothing to do with you not pulling Dear Boromon?
No, no, but like the thing is though, is like even though I didn't pull Diaboromon, like the fact is if I did, I could never have built a Diaboromon deck. If Diaboromon was my favorite Digimon, and I bought every single one of the sets, I would have seen one Diaboromon card and gone, man, I can't build it. But the set, it wasn't even playable unless you had him, and it wasn't playable with him. Don't get me wrong, I want to make that clear. But like you couldn't even attempt the archetype without that. And Diaboromon's one of probably like the top 10 most popular Digimon of all time, if you look at it.
Yeah, for sure.
At least from the bag, he's probably top 5 bad guys at least because of the movie.
Oh yeah. No, that's fair. I was just giving you crap.
No, I get it, but I know it kind of adds into it though, because like I really like Diaboromon. The first movie is my favorite movie. It's my favorite piece of Digimon media. He's one of my favorite bad guys. I never even thought about trying the deck because I wasn't about to shell out hundreds of dollars on the promo.
The promos were $100 a pop at one point.
Yes.
Yeah, like a smooth 100 if just for a tournament promo. So. No, it's honestly pretty crazy. Did Muachee or Tusa want to add anything before we ask one more question about this topic real quick that I think is actually really funny?
No, I got nothing to add. You guys say everything I wanted to say.
Yeah. All right, cool. What are your guys' opinions on if they can add a chase card? And when I mean a chase card, I mean like one of those super limited ones where it's like one in a case essentially, or not even one in a case. Looking at like the Rosemon Burst Mode alt, the Shine alt, and the Mirage alt, and then we had recently an Alt-Art Omnimon as like a box hopper. We've been having this consistent thing where Bandai will have it seems like they've been putting a chase in everything. Back in the day, when Digimon first released, Digimon didn't have a chase, and it was just Dragon Ball. So the Dragon Ball chases were very evenly priced every single set, right? But then we saw the first one introduced for Digimon in BT5, I want to say. It was the Ghost Omni, so 5 or 6. Okay, 6. So in 6 release, we got our first chase, and then we follow that up with the Belphemon. And after Belphemon, I just don't even really know all of the chases because there's been so many. There was an Imperial Dramon, there was a Box Hopper one, there was another set one. We had the Omnimon in EX4. We had the new, I think it was Omnimon Ultra B that might have had a chase or something like that. Never mind, like the Gold X7 with the silver Darkness Bogramon. So we've been seeing these chases that are pretty nice, and whenever a chase comes out, it's always at least decently priced, right? We're seeing the newest burst cards. It's been a little bit since I saw the price on them, but when they first came out, they were going for around 150. I want to say like between 150 and 200 or whatever, which is a good chunk of cash when you're opening a box of cards and opening that, right? So do you think they could implement a chase card kind of style? Because they started doing chase cards in the box hoppers, and that's something I don't like. I think that's just so dumb. You're never gonna hit that. I'd rather see chases in tournament packs where it's just like a really, like Eric was saying earlier, just a really awesome version of like a SR foil or something like that. And I think even something like that where they can keep your general packs like whatever, but you're really just hunting for a chase. I think that could be something that's really fun that we don't see, that we haven't really seen so far in Bandai. But do you guys think that's plausible at all?
I think it's possible.
Oh, go ahead.
So I think it's possible because we have a tamer pack, and chase card for that tamer pack is the Alternate Magnamon, and that's like right now like what, $200?
Yep.
And I think it's possible so for tamer pack, sometimes when we let locals, sometimes the locals will give it to us. Yep. I think it should be possible, and they do that for tournament packs.
One other thing I want to state really quickly too on the topic too is that you divide the player base too into like a couple of different points when you're looking at expensive cards. Nobody needs a max start deck. If you want to play a max start deck, that's totally on you. You can't really complain about wanting to spend the money for the alt arts and stuff like that. So I feel like you fall into two categories of player. You're either like the kind of collector base player who really doesn't mind shelling out the cash for cards, or you're on not necessarily on a budget, but you have a certain amount of money that you're comfortable spending on the card game, and when you get into the alt arts and the really big chase cards, that's outside of your comfort zone. And I feel like for the people who don't mind buying alt arts and like having their decks maxed out and stuff like that, I feel like introducing chasers are really, really nice. And I just feel like if you are a casual player, you just don't need it. So if you do open a chase card, if you're playing your regular Tuesday tournament, you open a chase card that you don't care about, now you just paid for your tournaments for a month. And I think that's really, really cool. And then some collector gets to have a card that's like a 1 in 2,000 in the world, or whatever collectors like, right? They like to have different things at different for different reasons. But
I'll go ahead.
Sure, yeah. I don't mind the idea of a chase card. Like that's just my personal opinion. As long as that's not the only version of the card you can get.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but I didn't really have much else to say. Eric, go ahead.
No, I was letting you go because my statement is simple. Give us a ghost card in every set, besides EX. No EX ghost card.
Yeah, sure.
EX, give us something different. I think you want to have the ghost cards be valuable, but I feel like you want to keep them in main sets. I think I like the burst mode cards they do right now, but I don't think they're enough of a chase for a chase.
Wait,
I like the real chase.
No, those are like there's like 1 in every 3 cases for those. They're not.
Yeah, but they're not that value.
Oh, really? What are they at right now?
They're like a couple hundred. Like the most expensive one is Shinegreymon Burst, which is somewhere in like the 2 to 250 range, depending on where you look at it. Like about 200 right now, but like that's very good. But if you look at the prices in this set as a whole, like Alt Art Omni is bought out, but going for like $60 a piece right now.
Yeah.
And I kind of like him. I think they're not that expensive because there's multiple of them. There's 4 of them, and it makes the good ones worse. I just really like the ghost cards. I think having a one specifically, just one of, make them super rare as they were to have the hit chase. Like you said, something valuable and not something where people need to feel the need to collect too much is something they can just hit. Mm-hmm. And I think they look a little better than this. Like we've talked about people not even knowing that they hit the burst thing sometimes.
Yeah.
They're like, wait, is this the burst?
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, that is the burst Rosemond. Yeah, no, amazing. So I think put a ghost in all the main sets, put something in the EX sets, but I think the EX sets, they should keep a little bit their own thing. I think EX sets, I like the fact that they have lots of alt art hits, and I don't want to necessarily pollute that with a lot of other stuff. I think if they're going to do anything from EX, maybe make it where you can, add in more secrets or something and make it even more like a pool to make people buy more, or just expand the set a bit if they need to do that. But with the short card pool and everything, it doesn't make a lot of sense to try and force the buying. It's always gonna, I feel like push back on the community. And if you put too many ghost cards out there, they're not going to be as cool. I know it's also the issue.
Sure.
If we have a ghost card of all of them, they're eventually going to stop being cool. So even then, I'm thinking like, well, maybe we do it every other set. After I said doing it in every set, but maybe it's one set gold and one set ghost, and we do some different things. Yeah, but that's all I got on that. Just put them more in one of a kinds, one copies in each set though. Only one chase. That's what I like.
Piggybacking on that for just but with the prices of the cards, one thing with Digimon card game for their chases compared to literally every other one of Bandai's card games, the chases in Digimon have always been lower, except for the original Ghost Omnimon that was going for like a couple grand, dropped down to like $1,000, and now you can get them for like between 5 and 6. But following that one up immediately, the Belphemon, for some reason, I personally never ever saw anybody open an Belphemon, so in my eyes, it's just crazy rare, and I still want to see one in person to this day. But even that Belphemon had dropped down to be between 200 and 300 for a long time, and you're seeing that be super consistent with a lot of the chases. So even when you're looking at the Magnamon, when you're looking at the other cards as well, they kind of all fall into that place. So for the Digimon chases, it does seem like the newest ones that they're adding have been along the same lines as those ones. But like I was saying before, they have the two different types where it's the ghost style where it's the same color all the way through, but the other one that they have is the throwback to the OG card game ones, and I really like those ones too. So one of our original chase, or it wasn't a chase, it was just the alternate art, but it was the red Omnimon. But then we see like the Magnamon, the Imperiodramon, and I think there might be one more Omnimon that might be a chase in that art style. But I totally agree with you on that one, Eric, where it's where it'd be really cool to see like Ghost in the main set, and then maybe like the OG card art versions in a couple other ones, right? Yeah. Maybe like a Tamer pack for that'd the OG art one or something. So for sure.
Yeah, I think that'd be great for the EX set. Would be the OG ones.
Yeah,
especially because the EX sets are almost often focused on fan favorite Digimon. I feel like but necessarily not ones that are like the main cast per se. So it adds a lot. You add a lot of cool options in there for stuff that we wouldn't normally see.
No, the collector market and collector side of Digimon is a crazy interesting place for sure. Sorry, Tusa, did you have something else you want to add too?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure. I did add one. This one's going to be a surprise question for all you guys as well. Just wanted to add at the end, and I do have one outgoing question for us. But for this topic, I did want to circle back to the store structure that we were at earlier when we were talking about like bringing regionals and things like that back to stores. Do you guys think that we need to bring store championships back? This is something I want to bring up a little bit earlier, or the invite to nationals from store championships, because store championships are still happening right now. But I can wholeheartedly say that they feel like nothing compared to what they felt like last year across every single card game. But what do you guys think, and why?
I think we should have invites for store champs if Bandai is not going to do like more in-person regionals, because otherwise the only way to get the invite is to do online. But then not a lot of people like Eric do online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of torn on this because I'm with you there on that. Where I would like to qualify for Worlds, but at Nationals, but at the same time, I think last year's Nationals was just way too many people qualified. I think it was a really cool event. It was a really fun one to go to, but it didn't really feel like, compared to a lot of other card games, it didn't feel like a Nationals because pretty much felt like an open qualifier at that point. I mean, obviously some of our group didn't manage to qualify, but it was a very wide spread of skill levels.
Yeah.
And I think I'm really looking forward to Nationals this year, even though I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be going because I don't play online, so I'm not going to have an invite unless I randomly go to a tournament and happen to have a great result. Mm-hmm. But I think for the people that do go, you guys, especially if it's in person, it's going to be one of the coolest and one of the most fun tournaments that we've ever had. The really hyper competitive top players that are just all going to be like one room playing each other, and I'm really interested to see what's going to come out. I think it's going to be some really cool deck innovations, and it's going to be a lot more of a skill-based result compared to such a big tournament that Nationals was last year. Because with 1,000 players, I feel like it adds so much additional RNG to the tournament that it takes a lot of the skill out. With so many, new people coming in. Again, there's definitely a lot of skill players at winning, but I feel like, it just added so many more variables. With whether it be deck choices of random stuff, and again, just having to go through so many more rounds in such a big tournament to get to your end game results.
Yeah, no, honestly, those are some really good points because we were all at nationals last year, so we totally know. Yeah, there was a lot of players there, and it kind of did feel like an open invite event. That's actually a really good point, but it was also just kind of like the biggest event of the year.
It was a
Just in
blast, though.
general. Yeah, it was super fun. I think the one thing that I noticed a lot of people complain about is kind of the logistics of the tournament. So people just said like the unorganizedness of it and kind of how the side events were firing. But I feel like that's not our fault as players, really. You know what I mean? It's not really there's nothing that we can do to make that go any smoother. So it's always going to kind of fall back on Bandai having enough judges and judge staff and things like that. And ultimately, if a lot of us are getting our invites for the in-person nationals by paying, you know, $30 a person to enter regionals and then entering multiple, there should be enough judges on event to run the event smoothly so that we can have an enjoyable time. I feel like that's one of the points that shouldn't really fall back on the player base. We should just have enough judges to run events, right? In the structure that they presented the structure to us, so they should be able to uphold it. But how about you guys? How do you guys feel about it?
Sure. Yeah, I I think like you guys are both right in terms of like Nats felt like there was just too many people there. But also at the same time, if we don't like there's like no incentive to go to store championships. It just feels like
I've skipped every single
locals.
one, and I've skipped every one in every card game I'm playing right now. There's no point. I don't really care about the One Piece cards, even though they're good value and stuff like that. But it's just not. And then for the Digimon ones, right? What am I going to do? Play in extra locals this week for what reason?
Yeah. So yeah, they need to figure out a solution that like kind of fixes both of those issues.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not saying that I know the solution, but it's definitely not what it is now.
Just change store champs to the in-person regionals instead of doing like 256 person like they do for the webcams. Just quarter it into like a 64-man in person, and then just kind of instead of having every single store host for the event or whatever, just kind of have it be a season like how they do 2 seasons now, where it's like July and then August, or if it's June and then August or whatever, and then just divide your store tournaments up like that, where the people in the local areas can still come out and compete. But if it's like a 64 person event, you're not going to play that 4 times just to keep losing in round 3 or round 2 or whatever, right? So it gives you something competitive to go play, but it also gives you the opportunity to earn your invite in a real way, I think, in my opinion. But I think that would be a cool structure. They basically just merge what we were melding before and then just bring it to the store championship kind of package. But
that is a hot topic for sure, because I know it's very debatable, right? Because it's like, why if I can get my invite through store champs, why do regionals at all, right? It's like, why grind through 8-10 rounds to get an invite top 16 when I could just do a 8-man tournament and get my invite for game first against like Sukumon or something like that. Right? It's like you think that's very competitive, but you don't want to be too exclusive. But national is a very competitive event where you have to be, unfortunately, very exclusive to some people, right?
Right. Or even if it's not something as big as 64, I feel like 32 or 48 is also a very formidable number or a good number. I'm not sure if it's thins it out enough, because I think right now, what are they, 16 man? So you have a 16 man, it ends up being 4 rounds. I feel like if you double that number, it only adds 1 round, right? So you're only going to round 5. I feel like a 6-round tournament to determine the best 4 players in a specific area would be really good, as opposed to when we're running store tournaments now, it's 3 store tournaments a week every week for 3 weeks, right? And that's just like a little bit too much. That's however many events, depending on how many tournaments you have in your area. That could be like 37 invites being given out in the month of June to your local area. And if you just saturate that, I think we run into the same problem that Eric was highlighting, where you just have too many people. But I feel like if you make it into the structure we were talking about earlier, where it's just like a big in-person tournament, I think that you can kind of get it to be someplace that would be healthy. But enough rambling from me. Muachee, did anybody else have any other thoughts that they want to add on to the store tournament?
Wait, quick question. Hey, Eric, you do Pokemon. Is there like different ways you can get an invite to nationals? Like, isn't there like ways you can get points for different events that you can get international?
Please talk about Pokemon.
So I want to be clear. I'm not super clear on it. I have a general understanding of the point system, but basically Pokemon is a point-based system where results in tournaments gain you points towards it. And I don't know its current state as, but I remember actually a few years ago this was a big hot topic, because you used to be able to earn those points at local events where you got a certain amount max you could earn a year in those local events, and they took it away for a while. where you no longer could earn those points at locals, and it was never enough to get your invite, mind you. But it was basically where if you went and you got a solid, top 64 or top 32 performance at one regionals, perhaps, and that would give you enough points along with going to your locals. You could maybe get in. Where nowadays you maybe need to have multiple events, so you need to qualify multiple times, and it's mainly around the world's qualifying is the big factor. I think nationals is a bit easier to get into. Again, Pokemon players, if you're listening, I'm sorry, I don't know all of it, but worlds is the big factor where you need to pretty much get a top 8 in a regionals, which are 500, 600 plus people, up to the thousands, or you need to have consistent top 32 results and earn the points. But it's it's a good system. You earn the points in. You need to have good results to get in. But also, if you're a consistent player who gets top 128 at like 7 or 8 tournaments in a row, and you grind all the regionals, you can still make it in because you maybe you only need one top 64, but you show that you're an overall top player, even if you haven't gotten a great result that year. And it allows you, maybe it's called a squeak in by some, but it shows you're a consistent player at a decently high enough level to earn that invite. And it's not as all or nothing, as in have the run of your life, or be one of those top players, or you just don't have a shot.
That's actually super interesting. I wonder if a point system. Do you guys think a point system could get fit onto Bandai?
I wouldn't be opposed.
Huh?
I think it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah,
Why?
it's not bad.
Why do you guys feel like that? In your position as players, right? Because none of us have. You guys probably haven't played in card games that have point systems. I know that for Yu-Gi-Oh, is there? I know that you earn your invite, but do you have to go to a certain amount of events for Yu-Gi-Oh, or do you just earn it at a certain event?
No idea.
Okay, yeah, I'm
No
not sure
idea.
either. Okay,
Yeah,
So,
no. Yeah, go ahead.
I will say, even though I said I wouldn't be opposed, I know that I would be less likely to do well because I like some weeks I don't want to play competitive. I just want to like I don't care about like how well I play, and I'll take like a really jank deck and play at a competitive level. And I know that if a point system was how it was handled, I wouldn't be scoring a lot of points. So part of me is opposed to it, but I do think it will be a more honest way to like kind of gauge like your skill level.
So
interesting.
I will say, I think one of the big things why points exist in Pokemon is because all the major qualifying events are all in person. That's why a point system is really needed, is because in a situation where you can't make it to all events, you need to have the ability to only go to 2 events but still make it in through a collective of just not a top. The issue is when you do that with Digimon, you have all these online events. Everyone can just enter all the online events, and people are just going to grind out. If all you need is if you get points from a top 128 in an online event, people can enter 20 online events a year and get guaranteed in by just grinding through 128 by just not dropping. Like you can go X4 and get 128 at a Digimon event just because so many people drop. So maybe more people will play out because of the point system, and that would actually help avoid the big drop to it, and maybe that'd be a help. But I think that's kind of would make it a bit harder for that to be successful in Digimon because of just the way the events are. Everyone can join them, which is both a good thing. It's a great thing for getting people to join, but it also makes it so realistically the people joining Ultimate Cups are 80% the same players every Ultimate Cup or every regionals. Like it's 50 to 80% of the same players every time. Pokemon Regional, it's maybe 20 to 30%. And it's a lot more regional based. I might be wrong on that. Maybe it's closer to 50%, but nothing near the Digimon comparison of it's definitely people signing up for the Bandai events are the ones that are consistently showing up to all the Bandai online events.
That's a good point. I know that for me personally, I definitely don't think it could work for Digimon. For the exact same reason that Eric pointed out, with the way that they're doing online events and with the structure of what we've seen with them kind of pushing forward, I don't see online events going anywhere. I just only see them getting more integrated into the just general structure of what Bandai wants to do. So moving forward with that, I feel like that a point system gets really, really tricky unless you're doing kind of like a really tight point system where it's not awarded out to top 128, and then it's the same thing where it's only awarded to top 16. And then you kind of fall into the same structure where it feels really, really grindy to try to get enough points because you're playing in an event. If you're X2 or whatever, or if you're if you're X2, you're fighting to have the right percentage to get your invite or get the points for that event. And if you're one game loss out or whatever, I think that could create a really toxic situation, which is actually what we've been seeing a little bit from somebody outside looking into the Pokemon community. I know that it's a big topic in the Pokemon community, and not everybody likes grinding points for worlds. I know that a lot of people, like, it's like at the start of the season, it's like they announce like, yo, this year for me, I'm grinding. I'm going to get my invite to Worlds. You know what I mean? It's a big thing, and it's a big deal for people. And one of the things that we've talked about all the time with Digimon is that we like that it's more hands-off and a little bit more laid back. And I think that if they made the grind for the Nets season super, super grindy, it would just be not as fun for a game that has so much RNG, where you can truly RNG yourself out of a top 16 for something so important. I mean, that's how it is now. You can still RNG yourself out of a top 16, but it feels like it's probably a lot worse where you're fighting for a top 32, and it's not like points that can pass down in that situation. Once you get your invite, and everything else passes down. So if you're fighting for top 16, you lose in the last one, you're a high top 32 finish, maybe you do get it or whatever, right? But yeah, no, I just don't think a point system would work for Digimon. But how about for you, Tusa?
Oh, honestly, I would agree with that too.
Yeah.
It's not much. Yeah, you guys already highlighted like the majority of the key points about that too, and I agree with you guys.
No, for sure. I feel like a lot of it just kind of falls into the structure of it's just too much, right? For Digimon at least, maybe something like that could work for something like One Piece, where you see so many competitive players, and you have like teams that are a lot more known in One Piece. You have a lot of people know like where the different serial Luffy's are, right? People know how many are in Arizona. People know how many are in Minnesota. People know how many are on. I just found out today that Luxury Gaming has like 12 of them apparently, which is crazy. I didn't even know that they were like a One Piece team, right? So it's super interesting. I think that One Piece is a little bit more competitive, so maybe you could fit it into something like that. But when you're looking at it, I think you have to look at the structure of it. But here with our exiting question for everybody, since today was themed off of Digimon, we've all had decks that are very, very true to our heart. Lots of decks were like known amongst each other for playing. So I want to know what your guys' favorite individual Digimon card of all time is. Whether it's linked to your favorite deck, whether it's linked to like some crazy mechanic that you think is just so cool that you love or whatever. I just want to hear what your guys' favorites are.
Yeah, I can start because I know it's on the top of my head. So it's not saying it's my favorite card is kind of hard, but it's my favorite deck I've ever played ever in Digimon. BT5 Shoutmon DX, Shoutmon OTK.
Let's go.
It was my favorite deck ever. I played so much of it. I got a store championship off of it. I won, not store championship, but like I won multiple events off of it. You know, back before store championships. But that was a deck where you basically multi-stacked Shoutmon DX to put Greymons underneath it, and you would super Mega Digimon fusion into BT1 Omnimon and swing 3 to 4 times in a turn with BT1 Omnimon for 2 to 3 checks each, and OTK him with that and Delicate Plan. So I would just hold back. It's just such a fun deck. It's my saddest thing about Mega Digimon Fusion being banned is just so I can't play that deck just for memes, even though it's so bad right now, I'm sure. But just going into it, and I remember back then Security Control was a strong deck in the format, and I have played against one of our friends, Avery, on our team, and I at one game in that checked 12 security and swung for game in one turn.
Yep.
With that deck, and nothing feels greater than swinging for 12 security against Security Control and then swinging for game, and your Delicate Plan the entire time, so none of their options are triggering. You're like 19k, so it's just not even it's not even a realm of the world that they can do anything, and they're just watching themselves go down. And that to me is just a special place in my heart for a true OTK that it wasn't that impressive, but it just did such a fun thing, and when it worked, it really worked.
So let me ask you a question really quick before you move on. What builds a bigger stack of Digimon, Belphemon or that Shoutmon deck?
Belphemon, because it cheats. Belphemon's got tamers to do it. Shoutmon just has DX.
Yeah,
that's the only thing that put us up underneath. And honestly, like sometimes DX you didn't even have a target because all you were running with DX and Ziggs. Like it was a tough world back in BT5, man. But man, did I force it through to happen?
No, I love that one. Who wants to go next?
I can go next. Mine's gonna be
Oh, you can go ahead. You can go ahead.
Yeah, it's just Rise Greymon X, the BT9. I
Yeah.
think, I try to put that card in everything, every version of every deck that I try to play. I even tried putting it in Blackwood Greymon. It's pretty fun.
Okay, nice.
For me, I don't really have a favorite card, but my favorite deck my favorite deck was O-Force because I used to play when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like Architect modes multiple times.
Yeah, for sure.
For me, it would be Gama BT9. For one card as a mega, it is so
Oh, yeah.
much.
Oh yeah,
That's what you're known for on the team too. So that's very perfect. No, I love that. I think for me, I have to give a long-winded answer. I've been long-winded answering everything tonight. So I think that going back and looking at what my first favorite mega was, it was Mega Gargomon in the 1.5 format when you paired it with Crest or Sarismon, not Crest anything, but Sarismon. And the reason I like Mega Gargomon so much is that it was super powerful back then, but it was pretty slept on for what its effect did. But it was my favorite card because every time that it came onto the board, it was so board impactful and it just did so much. And it honestly, it was one of the most powerful green cards at the time that was unrecognized, but what it did is it foreshadowed what green needed to be able to do and what green needed to do, and then fast forward, 11 sets or 10 sets or whatever, now we have Quartzmon, who is just a souped up perfect version of what Mega Gargomon did, and the entire time, that's really all we've needed. We've always just needed the good suspending and the good locking and having a good consistent amount of effect like that, so I think Mega Gargomon foreshadowed that a lot and just said a lot about the green design super early on. So favorite card, also Terriermon, is tied for my favorite Digimon alongside the Agumon line. So I love the Terriermon line just from the show. So having it be just such a duality of being so meta impactful and saying a lot about the card game, the color, and then also just being my favorite Digimon from the show was great. So that's got to be my favorite card. Favorite card in Digimon. So. But that wraps it up. That was all the questions from everybody.
thanks for having us.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure I didn't
awesome.
talk over anybody. But yeah, no, all right. Thanks for tuning in, you guys. This is me, Jamonster, with Oppas Gaming, accompanied by the team, and we're out. Take care, you guys.
See ya.
Serious.